Chapter 1 of The Ice Monster by David Walliams, narrated by me. Chapter 1 Cockroaches for Breakfast. One bleak winter night in the back streets of London, a tiny baby was left on the steps of an orphanage. There was no note, no name, no clue as to who this little person was, just the potato sack in which she was wrapped. As snow fell around her in Victorian times, it was not uncommon for newborn babies to be abandoned outside orphanages, hospitals, or even the homes of upper-class folk. Their poor, desperate mothers hoped their children would be taken in and given a better life than their birth families could provide. However, it was hard to imagine a worse start for this baby than at Warmley Hall, home for unwanted children. 26 orphans lived there, all crammed into a room that should have slept 8 at the absolute most. The children were locked up, starved, and beaten. On top of that, they were forced to work day and night, and they had to assemble gentlemen's pocket watches from tiny pieces until they went blind. All the children were painfully thin, with filthy rags for clothes. The orphans' faces were black with soot. All you could see in the gloom were their hopeful little eyes. Agatha, Bessie, Clarence, Dorothea, Elsie, Felix, Gertrude, Humphrey, Iris, Joe, Kenneth, Lillian, Mabel, Nancy, Olive, Percival, Queenie, Rupert, Stanley, Theodore, Ursula, Violet, Wilf, Alexandra, Yordrick, and Zachary. When a new baby arrived at the orphanage, all the other older children would come up with a name for them. They liked to work their way through the alphabet, so their names would be as different as possible. The night the baby in the potato sack was left on the steps, they had reached E. If she had been down the day before, she might have been called Doris. A few days later, would have been Frank. Instead, she was named Elsie. This prison of an orphanage was run by an evil old boot named Mrs. Curdle. Her face was usually fixed in a permanent grimace, and she was covered from head to toe in warts. She had so many warts, even her warts had warts. The only thing that made her smile was the sound of children sobbing. Mrs. Curdle would scoff all the food donated for the orphans, so the children in her care had to eat cockroaches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. "Creepy crawlies are good for you," she would chuckle. If any of the orphans spoke after candles out, she would stuff one of their pus-soled and old stockings in their mouth, and they would have to keep it there for a week. "That'll keep you all quiet, Windy Wallet." When the children were sleeping on the cold stone floor, she would put wriggly worms on the backs of their shirts so they'd wake up screaming, "Ah! Hornswoggle!" Mrs. Curdle would sneeze over the orphans, "Achoo!" and blow her nose on their hair. A weekly bath involved her dunking the orphans one by one into a barrel full of maggots. The maggots would nibble off the dirt. "You muck snipes," Mrs. Curdle would snicker. To dry off afterwards, she would peg the children to the washing line by their ears. Twang! Once, when Elsie was found with a pet rat in her pocket that she had befriended, Mrs. Curdle used it as a ball game in cricket. Thud! Eee! Whiz! What's that? If she felt one of the orphans had given her a funny look, Mrs. Curdle would poke them in the eye with a dirty, stubby finger. "Ouch! Take that, kid face!" As a special treat at Christmas, the orphans would line up for a present, a whack on the bottom with bumper books of carols. Bash! "Merry Christmas, child!" Mrs. Curdle would exclaim with glee on each strike. Elsie endured 10 long, hard years at Warmley Hall. The only thing that kept her going was the dream that one day her ma would magically appear and whisk her away. She never did. As the girl grew up, she would invent more and more incredible stories about her. Perhaps her ma was a jungle explorer, or an acrobat with a travelling circus, Even better, a lady pirate off having adventures on high seas. Every night, Elsie would make up bedtime stories for her fellow orphans. Over time, the girl became a magnificent storyteller. She had all the other children in the palm of her grubby little hand. Then, Ma found herself in a dark, dark place. It was the belly of a huge blue whale. Ma escaped from the tribe of cannibals, which wasn't easy. They already gobbled her up her left leg. Boom! Ma had thrown the bomb into the Thames just in time, so no one got killed. It was all in a day's work for a secret agent. The end. When that night's story finished, the other orphans would cry out, "Another! We don't want to go to sleep just yet. Please, Elsie, just one more." Just one night, the children cheered so much at Elsie's story that they woke up Mrs. Curdle. "No more stories, you nasty little beast!" raged the woman, beating Elsie with a broomstick on every word. The pus-sodden stocking she stuffed in the girl's mouth only had muffled her screams. "Ah! Ah! Ah!" The beating was so severe that Elsie wasn't sure she was going to survive. Her little body was black and blue with bruises, and the girl knew she had to escape or die. Chapter 2, Monkey Feet. Elsie loved all the rats and pigeons that would find their way inside Warmley Hall. If she had any food, she would share it with them and tend to any broken wings and legs. In return, they would snuggle up to her, which made her feel less lonely. In her heart, Elsie felt a deep connection to these animals that Mrs. Curdle called vermin to her. To her, they were little creatures all alone in the world, just like her. Elsie had noticed how the rats got into the orphanage by scuttling along a leaky pipe that came down from the ceiling. One thing that set Elsie apart from her fellow orphans was her feet. Elsie didn't have any ordinary feet. She had monkey feet. The advantage of having long, thick toes that could grip like fingers was that it made climbing easy peasy. So one night, when everyone else was asleep, Elsie scaled the pipe to see where the rats scampered in. Just as she thought, there was a small rat-sized hole at the top of the wall. After that, every night after candles out, Elsie scaled the pipe using her monkey feet. Once at the top, she would scrape away at the brickwork with her fingernails. Night after night, she scraped and scraped, making the hole bigger and bigger. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Eventually, the hole was just large enough for Elsie to squeeze her tiny, underfed body through it. However, she couldn't leave Wormley Hall without saying goodbye to her 25 friends. "Wake up," she said softly. Little eyes began to appear out the dark. "I'm going to run away tonight. Who's coming with me?" Silence. "I said, who's coming with me?" There were murmurs of, "I'm so scared," and "Curdle'll kill us," and "They'll catch us and beat us to death." The littlest little one of the lot was named Nancy. She looked up to Elsie like she was a big sister. Nancy whispered, "Where are you going?" "I don't know," replied the girl. "Anywhere but here." "Please don't forget about us." "Never." "Promise?" "I promise," said Elsie. "I'll see you all again one day. I know it." "I'm going to miss your stories," said another orphan, Felix. "Me too," added Percival. "Next time I'll see you, I'll tell you the greatest story of all." "Good luck, Elsie," said Nancy. "You'll always be in here," replied Elsie, patting her chest. The girl gave one last shimmy up the pipe with her monkey feet. She squeezed herself through the hole in the wall, and with one final wiggle, she was gone. Chapter 3, Pong. Elsie ran and ran and ran, as fast as she possibly could. She didn't dare look back. She was free but alone, and now she had to fend for herself on the streets of London. Even though she'd never been outside the orphanage before, the big city was a scary place, especially for a little girl. Danger lurked in every corner. Soon enough, though, Elsie taught herself how to steal food from the market stalls. As for a bed, she found an old tin bath to sleep in and used old newspapers as sheets. In her mind, Elsie pretended that there was a grand four-poster bed fit for a queen. With no home or family, Elsie was what was known as an urchin. Victorian London was teeming with them. Elsie the urchin. Pong. Elsie has never, ever had a proper bath. Maggot's bath only make you dirtier. Never washed hair that looks like a mop. Dirty hands. Jumper that has more holes than jumper. And it should really just be called a holes. Grubby face. Too big coat. Borrowed from a washing line. No shoes. Too small trousers. Thick with grim. Elsie didn't look much like a hero. However, as you'll soon discover, heroes come in all shapes and sizes. That's the end of this chapter, folks. If you enjoyed, please do not forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below which book I should read after this one. See you guys in the next chapters. Bye-bye.